Those of you who follow me on my various social media may know at this point that I went on vacation recently. I was gone for a week between the 11th and the 18th of June, and I thought just for funsies to document the experience for myself and also to let you guys know what I was up to, I'd make a video about it. Granted, I probably should have taken a lot more video if I was planning to do that, but I do have some, and I'm going to work it into this when I can. I also have some pictures. It was a lot of fun. I went to North Carolina, which I'd never actually been to. I'd been to other areas kind of nearby, but never to North Carolina itself. Specifically, I stayed in the area around Asheville, North Carolina, where I stayed in a cabin called the Cabin in the Clouds, rented out by Graybeard Realty, which, as a fan of Skyrim, is actually kind of funny to me, as here I am living on the top of a mountain in a building owned by the Graybeards. Other fans of the game can probably understand why I find that amusing. I went initially with my mom, my sister, and my sister's kid. You guys have met my mom, assuming that you've watched my Wonder Woman review. If you haven't watched my Wonder Woman review, go watch my Wonder Woman review. I'll put it up in the corner here, or at least I'll try to remember to. If I don't remember to, let me know and I'll fix it. But here's a picture of my sister and her kid. Her kid, his name is Elijah, is still less than a year old, but he's really well behaved. He wasn't an annoyance at all, and didn't get in the way of any of the vacationing stuff at all, as my sister is very good at taking him around with her and being active with him. We also took a couple of our dogs. My sister took her dog Hope, who is 15 years old. She was a family dog back when I was still a teenager. And my dog Rupert, who is 9 years old, which is obviously not as old, but it is still getting up there. And I've never taken him on vacation before, and I realized this might be my only chance to do it. So I went ahead and took him with me, and I was super worried the entire time about how well behaved he'd be, but he was actually excellent. He loved our cabin. He loves my sister's kid, and the two of them played together most of the time that they were in the same place together. I walked him a lot. He loved the nature in the area. Overall, I think it was a really fun experience for him. I don't think he had any idea what was going on, but I think he had a lot of fun. It was a 7-hour drive or a 6.5-hour drive, something along those lines. We went in my mom's new car, which is actually a used car from a couple of years ago, but it's a really powerful car. It's got great air conditioning, and it has a satellite radio and a spacious interior, so it was a pretty comfortable ride, despite the fact that there were 3 people and 2 dogs and a baby all together in this car. It was also loaded to the brim with luggage and supplies. But overall, the drive wasn't bad. It's just a long drive. And I gotta say, it's a drive that I wish was a lot shorter because I really enjoyed it down there. I'd never really been up in the Appalachian Mountains themselves, and the air there is just excellent. Like, first of all, I don't like hot weather. I don't do well in hot weather. I particularly don't do well in hot weather with high humidity. But the summers there never really get all that terribly high, and any moisture in the air, it feels different than the moisture where I'm normally from. I have weird skin issues, and now I know that at least some of them stem from the environment, because while I was there, none of them bothered me. The mountain air did some really weird stuff to my hair, but otherwise, I felt healthier there than I've felt in a long time. We got to our cabin pretty late in the day on Monday the 11th, and mostly just chilled out at the cabin that evening and got settled in. But none of us, especially not my sister, who is a very active person, are the kind of people who just want to sit around for our entire vacation. So the next day, we went out and we found a couple of parks. One of them was in the town of Black Mountain. It was, I can't remember what it was called, like the Tomahawk Park or the Tomahawk Lake Park or something along those lines. It had this great view of the Seven Sisters Peaks, which if you haven't seen them, here's a picture of them here, as well as a picture of the placard, which points out which is which and what the names of all of them are. And then we found a park on the French Broad River that had a lot of walking paths and lots of shade and seating and other amenities. It was a really nice park. I'd love to go there again, because not only was the central core area just really pleasant, but you could go right down to the water in a lot of spots, which was really nice. The walking paths were really leisurely, and if you walked far enough down the paths, there was a dog park, an off-leash dog park, where we could let our dogs off and they could run around. That Wednesday, so the day after we went to those parks, my sister's husband drove in as well. He brought 2 more of her dogs, Charlie and Kiki, and some more supplies and stuff, and spent the rest of the week with us. And like my sister, he's a very active person, so of course they pushed for us to do even more stuff. They pretty much immediately went hiking, and I am not into hiking all that much. I don't know if you could tell that from literally everything about me. Now, walking casually through nature, even at a brisk pace, I really enjoy. And I would love to get to a point where I can do something regularly which is strenuous enough that you would call it hiking. It's just, I'm not quite there yet. And the one time that I did try to hike with them that week reconfirmed that for me pretty quickly. But they had fun with it, and I got to stay in while they were doing it. Just because I don't want to sit in my entire vacation doesn't mean I don't want to sit in part of it. I got to sit in and relax and read a book. It was very refreshing. And then that night we checked out a local restaurant, the name of which I cannot remember, but they're famous for, I think it was buttermilk fried chicken or something. I wish I could remember the name of the place. It was fine. It wasn't really my kind of place, but the food was still pretty good. The next day was probably my favorite physical activity of the week, that Thursday. We went whitewater rafting down the French Broad River with French Broad Adventures. I had so much fun doing that, despite the fact that, again, look at me, I'm not a very active person. I had so much fun doing that, I feel like that's something I could do once a week. It was absolutely fantastic, though I did get some sun, which you might still be able to see in my skin, and this blister came from it too, which really sucks. Because being someone who never actually leaves his home, I forgot that the sun exists and you need to screen yourself from it. At least that first day that I was outside for a long period of time unshaded. The rest of the week I was very conscious of it because I do not want melanoma. As Peter from Deadpool 2 says. And then after that, we hit a couple of local breweries because my brother-in-law is a craft brewer and likes to try other breweries when he gets the chance. And for anyone who does not know, the Asheville area has a lot of great breweries. The one that really stuck out to me was Green Man, which I really enjoyed. I actually brought some of their beer back. Friday, we went to a nature center. Again, I don't remember the name of it. I'll try to find it. And it was probably my favorite activity overall that wasn't wholly physical. They had a lot of great local animals in very realistic habitats for those animals. I'm not sure when I'll start doing it, but I'll start putting footage of our visit up as I'm talking about the place. It was a lot of fun. It was kind of rustic. The environments, like I said, felt very realistic. It felt like they had just enclosed areas of the forest. And forest is the correct term because that entire area is actually a temperate rainforest, which I did not know going in, and I thought that was super interesting. I actually learned that while whitewater rafting. Our raft guide was very good with local history and told us a lot of cool stuff. His name was Corey. He was a really nice guy. And I told him that I'm on YouTube, but I never actually gave him my channel name, so I don't know if he'll be able to find this. But if he can, I want to make sure to give him a shout out. Anyway, this nature center was excellent. They had stuff from deer to red-tailed hawks and bears and even wolves, and I love wolves, and I got to get like within 5 feet of them, which was really neat. They had a petting section where I got to get pics of the Rastafarian sheep, as my sister called it. And because all three of us are members of my local zoo, and this nature center was part of the same group of zoos and nature centers as my local zoo, we got a discount on admission, which was pretty great. It was loads of fun, and again, that's probably something that I could do once a week. I could probably walk my way through that place once a week and not get bored. Saturday, our group finally split up. My mom and I, who are avid Pokemon Go players, went and drove around to find a place where we could participate in the community day for June, and we ended up driving into the little town of Black Mountain. And Black Mountain might have been my favorite part of the vacation overall. That wasn't like a specifically planned activity. Our goal was to find a place where we could play the game, but also walk around and see some interesting stuff. So we picked this little town and we got lunch at the Trailhead, I believe it was called, which may have actually had some of the best food that I've ever had in my entire life. We had Kelly as our waitress. I got 2 specials, a shrimp chowder and swordfish tacos, which they are not going to have all the time, but my mom got their Trailhead burger and their signature onion rings, which were fantastic. We also got their fried pickles, which were very good. And once again, I find that I have to say, I could make this a regular place where I could eat. I've actually been meaning to go and post a review of them on Google or something, just to help them out in what little way that I can, because they were so great. We also visited a little bookstore in the town, where I picked up a really nice quality copy of Agatha Christie's Curtain, which I did not have in my collection yet. And then we just kind of spent the rest of the time walking around, passively playing Pokemon while we took in the sights of the town. And I fell in love with this little town. By the end of a week-long vacation, I tend to want to go home. I tend to be ready to go home, but this time I wasn't. By the time it was time for us to leave, I wasn't. I could have stayed there and never come home and been fine. Like, not actually, because I wouldn't have had, like, my computer and my stuff, but you get the point. That's how much I came to really enjoy this area, and I'm definitely going back. I mean, heck, I loved Black Mountain so much I drove back out to Black Mountain the Sunday, the day before he left. That's when I actually went back to the bookstore and bought the book that I eventually bought. I loved our cabin, too, which I haven't talked about much yet. It was at the top of this mountain. I already mentioned that. And that means that it had a lot of nice nature around it, but it also means that there were a lot of other cabins around it too. Most of which we actually couldn't get all that close to, or else we would be trespassing. So we weren't able to walk around too much, but I did walk around as much as I could, especially with my dog. He really loved the area around our cabin, and it actually became pretty routine to walk him all the way down to the mountain road, which led to our cabin every time he needed to go out. Mostly because I wanted to get a shot of the road coming up the mountain, which was very long and very stressful, with a lot of winding parts and very narrow areas and loose gravel and potholes. It was extremely strenuous to traverse multiple times a day, but I did eventually get used to it. And the cabin itself was fantastic. It had this rustic feel to it. It was a legit log cabin, and it felt lived in. Even when we got there, it felt lived in. It wasn't lived in, it was just staged so that it felt that way, but it did feel that way, and it helped it feel like home for the time that we were staying there. The furniture and decor was all very charming, and it was stocked with interesting books, not just about the area, but interesting fiction books. And again, I'm not sure when it'll actually start, but I'll show some footage of the cabin up here while I'm talking about it. The view was absolutely fantastic. We could see for miles. And one of the bookshelves even had some binoculars on it, so that we could stand out on the balcony behind the cabin and look out at the view through binoculars and see things in detail. This was a vacation which was a rare kind of vacation for me. So despite the strenuous drive, despite the stressful drive, that cabin is probably another place that I would go back to. Like, don't get me wrong, on any vacation I go to, I want to remember it, obviously, but this is one time where I feel like I will be doing a genuine disservice to myself if I forget details of this trip. I now have kind of a half-formed dream to actually move to the North Carolina, to the Asheville or Black Mountain area at some point in my life. Try to work it into my plans to stop in at least at Black Mountain on my way back from a trip that I'm going to take this fall. I don't know, I loved it a lot, and so I felt like I should share it with you guys if I could, as much as I could. That's pretty much going to wrap up this video. It's already running longer than I expected it to. Thankfully, the editing on this one won't be too bad, so I should be able to get it up today. I'm recording this on Saturday the 23rd. I should be able to get it up to you guys on Saturday the 23rd. And I actually think I'm going to close out with some footage I took of the entire drive up the mountain. I'll speed it up slightly so you guys don't have to sit through the entire 6-minute trip. It was a 6-minute trip. It felt much longer in real time, but it was still a 6-minute trip up a winding mountain road, which is not something I'm used to and could be pretty stressful. I am not driving while taking this footage, just so you guys know. But anyway, just because you guys might be curious, here it is, or at least here it will be once I say. Guys, if you have ever been to the Asheville area, what did you think of it? Do you perhaps even live in one of the areas that I mentioned? Let me know in the comment section down below or over on my Discord, link in the description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.